This is a tutorial on how to use the God-Centered Life Planning Guide. You may have the worksheet that doesn't have all this teaching, so just so that you don't have to print out so many pages, but here is the full picture, and I'm going to just walk through each section. I have gone through this with a number of people over the years, and it has 100% been helpful. It takes a lot of work, or at least a medium amount of work, but it has a tremendous amount of benefits and has the power to help focus your life and prioritize what is most important in light of eternity, what is most important when you die, and what you want to be true of you ultimately. There's a lot of things that we want to do in life, and one of the greatest enemies is not always evil things or bad things, but good things instead of getting the best things that God has for us. So this guide has tremendous potential if you put the hard work in it. Okay, so the title is God-centered life planning, and so the alternative to God-centered would be man-centered or our life planning guide. And instead, we're saying, okay, we belong to God, and we want to live wisely in light of this age. Right? Ephesians talks about living wisely and carefully, knowing where we're going in light of because the days are evil. And so this is our goal. And the reality is, if you are not proactive and you aren't thoughtful about where your life is going, you will 100% be walking and living in certain ways that are not aligned with your greatest desires and passions. And so this is a great gift to align everything together. Okay, so this is a guide, a tool for you, and it's something that you're going to have to go through every season. You can reassess because our macro goals shouldn't change much, but how we accomplish them will based off our season. I want to highlight this. Please note that this is for the perfectionists out there. You will go through multiple revisions over the years, and they're going to change. What's important is not having the most perfect answers, but to have thought through these important matters and work out an imperfect game plan to execute them. Okay, doing something imperfectly but with your whole heart is better than nothing. And so one of the great enemies for progress, healthy progress in transformation in our lives and planning, is the myth of perfection. And so it paralyzes where we do nothing. And so reject that myth. Okay, so first, you want to think through what is the purpose statement of your life. This is super important because everything should flow from it. It needs to be broad enough to apply regardless of stage of life. It shouldn't be specific to the stage of life or your physical condition. Like being super fit shouldn't be your purpose of your life, right? Because you can get super sick. But something that transcends a season of your life. However, it should be more specific than something like my purpose in my life is to glorify God. Can mean so many different things for people. So one way to think about it is to break it apart in two pieces. What is my ultimate purpose, and how will I accomplish that? And one way to think about this is, hey, what's the chief end of man? What's the purpose of all humans, of all Christians? And how am I going to accomplish that? What does that mean for you? Spend some good time on this. And the more time you spend on the beginning parts, the easier it'll be. Okay, now next, values. Values are different from belief. It's something that is immensely important to you. Now, it's very important to remember that values, you can't have too many values, because if you value everything, you value nothing. In other words, a value is not something that's like that is like you can like a lot of things, but a value is something that's going to take the top of your list, and it's mean that you're going to say no. So all values require time, attention, resources. Since we only have a limited amount of time, attention, and resources, we can only have a few values. Thus, to say yes to a value of yours requires many no's to other opportunities, events, and pursuits. So one of the keys to our life is to make sure we say no to the right things. And a lot of times we just say yes to whatever comes our way, and we are drifting and we are thrown to and fro based off of our feelings and based off of the circumstances. And having clarity on your true greatest values will help you say no to the right things and yes to the right things. Okay, it's important to determine if a particular value is aspirational or actual. So the next several sections are going to really talk about that. An aspirational value is something or someone that we want to be important to us. It is always a good desire. Note, it's something that we are aspiring to. On the other hand, an actual value is what you truly value according to the priorities in your life. This value may or may not be good. Our goal is that our aspirational values would become actual values, that they align. The reality is, many of us have actual values that are not what we ultimately want to be true of us. Okay, here's some examples. This is examples of alignment and misalignment. Many people say that they value their marriage. This is an aspirational value. However, one only has to look at their schedule to see if that is the case. An actual value. Do they have scheduled time for dates? Face-to-face time? Do they take regular inventories of the health of their marriage? Do they read books on marriage or attend counseling, training, or conferences? The individual may sincerely want a flourishing marriage, but if their schedules are not intentionally crafted to accomplish this, it's very unlikely to happen. Here is an example of misalignment. So it's when someone says that they value their marriage, but in actuality, they don't. Imagine someone who values being world-class in his or her occupation. As a result, they put 100% of their effort into their work. And on the weekends, they take online classes and read books in their field. They take people out to lunch who are further ahead of them with a goal of learning from them. They seek mentorship from the best of the best. Is an example of alignment of value and lifestyle. So this person here, their actual value is work, and you can see it. This person's actual value is not their marriage, and you can see it with their priorities and their lifestyle. So here's another example coming to Christ. If someone values an intimate relationship with Jesus, does his or her schedule reflect this? Note, this may even influence where the person may work or live. Some may say their relationship with Jesus is first in their life, but then they will go on and take a high-paying job opportunity across the country with little knowledge if they will have a strong faith community that will encourage their intimacy with Jesus. If making lots of money is one of their top values, then it makes 100% sense. But if it's not, then why take the job if it could mean harming your relationship with Jesus? Here is an example where their stated value is not aligned with their decision making. But okay, so there's some more teaching on here, and you'll see the link to it. And so essentially, one of the hardest steps for all of us is to be honest and to have awareness of where there's a misalignment in our hearts. That is one of the hardest things, because living under the self-deception that something is a value when it's not is one of the biggest killers to actually find transformation. Okay, so this is so key. So how do you find out your actual values? Everyone says God first, right? God, family, and that we create these orders that we have. But it can't be true that everyone says that, right? Like if 80% of Americans say number one priority is God, right? That, like, we know that factually can't be true, right? So how do we know it's true without just saying the right Sunday school answer that we know is the right answer and what we want to be true of us, okay? So if we take a good hard look at our lives, we will all find that there are actual values that we don't want to be true of ourselves. For example, few would claim that one of their highest values is money, okay? I've never met someone who said they're greedy, maybe one person, right? And yet, however, upon assessing their life, they may come to the sober conclusion that the way they spend their time and energy points to money as what they truly value. A great way to determine what you truly value is by looking at what you spend your most time, money, energy, and affections on. Another way is to ask those closest to you make a list for you. This here is a key that most people are going to skip, partly because it's too vulnerable and scary. But I highly recommend you ask others who know you well, what do I truly prioritize? What are my great values? Not from what I say, but how I live. So do your best to come up with your 5 actual values. Prayerfully, using loved one's input, figure out what are your top 5 actual values in your life right now, okay? It could be Christ, it could be your career, it could be a hobby, it could be leisure, it could be money. I don't know. You have to seek the Lord. We're going to come back to the aspirational values. Now, we're going to talk about aspirational values before we can fill out the other side. These are the ones, these are the things that you want to be true of you, right? So let's say someone says, I aspire to be a great reader, right? They're not a great reader. They don't enjoy reading, but they would love to be a kind of person who's well-read, right? So that's an aspirational value. A few ways to really find out what is at the core of what your heart longs for are some of these questions, okay? I'd be devastated if these areas of my life were not amazing by the time I die. So these areas could include your relationship with Jesus. You would be devastated if by the time you die, your relationship with Jesus was poor, right? Or your marriage was bad, or your children hated you, right? That would make you devastated. But on the other hand, let's say I'd be okay if these areas of my life were not amazing by the time I die. So this is kind of tricky. Let me explain. So these are things in your life that are important, that they're necessary and good and important, but you would be okay if they're not the best. So let's say you love your job, and you should, I hope you love your job or you enjoy your job, right? But if you died and you were not the top of your company, you'd be okay. I would like to be further ahead of my company. I would like to, gain more, earn more money, and so forth. But if I had an amazing marriage and an amazing, relationship with my children by the time I die, and they love me and they enjoy me, and they would want me to be their dad if they could have it all over again, and my wife would want to marry me again if she had another chance. That is more important to me than me being the top of my business or company or whatever. So that's an example of things that are maybe hobbies or different passions you have in your life that at the end of the day, you're going to say, these are fun and these are good and I enjoy them, but it's okay if it's not number one. And so that's another way to kind of identify what is the most important thing. Here's two other questions you could consider to help you figure out what your most greatest longings and aspirations for are. I would want loved ones to say this about me at my funeral. Imagine you can hover over your funeral one day after you die and listen to the obituary, the eulogies. What would you want them to say about you? He was so good with money, right? Or maybe like, he was so loving, right? He was a great dad. What would you want to be true? He had a great six-pack, or right, he laid down his life to serve others. Whatever it is, what would you want your spouse to say? I would love to marry him all over again. I was so grateful for him. Or I'm so glad he's dead. Like, what do you want them to say? What do you want your children to say? So after you complete these exercises and pray through them, you can narrow down your 5 top aspirational values and go back here and fill them out here, the aspirational values. All right. Now, this is the next step that helps us transition from our aspirational values to become actual values over time. So first, you need to identify, are there any actual values in your life that are unbiblical, that are sinful? So let's say you turned out, man, I'm greedy. I worship money, right? You need to repent of that, and you need to be honest about that and give it to Jesus and start the process of repenting from that. This is very important to understand what values that you have are unbiblical or things that are really unhealthy that you need to give up. Maybe it's leisure, maybe it's your own comfort, whatever it is. Then you want to ask yourself, how does your current schedule align with your aspirational values? What areas of your schedule do not align with your aspirational values? So for example, if you say, hey, I value fitness, okay, that's a great one. Like I value taking care of my health, but you have no time to go to the gym. Like it's just something that you hope to do one day. Then you realize that it is aspirational value only, and you need to make some changes to your life to make sure it becomes an actual value. Here's another question. Do I make major or minor decisions in light of my values? State an example of how you have or haven't. A lot of times we'll say, of course I make decisions in light of my most important values, like my family or Jesus or something like that, my church, whatever it is. But if you look at your actual life, perhaps you make lots of decisions based off of your feelings or whatever you feel like whatever circumstances show up, right? This is another way to kind of identify what's going on. Now, here's an action plan you can come with. Okay, I know this is getting long, but hopefully this is helpful. If you take it to heart, I know it will be, and we're coming to the end. What pursuits, passions, or people are getting in the way of my values? This is more of a negative question to think about. Okay, what needs to be cleared out? What gets in the way currently of me accomplishing my value? Let's just use fitness or health. I have a passion to stay up late, right? And I need to change my schedule with my sleep. That's one example. Are there any significant life shifts that need to occur for me to align my values with my life? For example, you may need to leave a job that's really toxic, or you have to work 70 hours a week. Or maybe you have a relationship that keeps you distracted or hurts you or draws you away from Christ. Some sort of thing in your life that is getting in the way. Maybe you need to get out of debt before you're free to live, to be able to do anything the Lord calls you to do, whatever it is. If so, what steps must I do to do this? When will I do this? Who can help me with this? It's kind of like a smarter goal. And this is a way for you to transition from some abstract goal that you can kind of throw out, but something really tangible. Hey, I need to leave my job. I will do this at the end of this year. Who can help me with this? So and so at my church is a great coach, or someone who's further along in their career. They can help give me a guidance, whatever it is you have to do. What daily and weekly habits must I schedule in order for my values to be represented in my life? So this is a question to ask. Okay, what do I need to? How do I rearrange? Right, your life is exactly what is reasonable based off of your lifestyle. Right, your life is the overflow of 1,000 decisions you make, which is your lifestyle. And so, in order to change who you are, change where you're going, you need to change your daily. We need to change our daily and weekly habits. And so, what needs to are there anybody in the church, anybody you know that can help you with this? Any mentors who are further along? Maybe your budget is terrible, right? You need someone to really help you, guide you through budgeting. Here's one last section. What almost second to last. What skills and competencies must I grow in? Okay, having the right skills makes living out a value possible. A value is something that is important to you. A skill is the way you achieve living out of value. For example, if I value my kids, I need to grow my skills of being a parent. I heard of a guy who had several kids and he wanted more, but he felt the Holy Spirit speak to him and say, hey, you need to stop having kids, or you need to level up your parenting, because you have capped out your leadership skills and your parenting skills. And so you need to level up. And he did. He leveled up. He started studying and learning. He joined this cohort and he grew significantly as a dad, and now he's able to steward more children in a way where they're all thriving. If I value being a friend, I want to grow in listening, counseling, caring for others. If I want to value my relationship with Jesus, I should grow in my knowledge of the Bible, theology, prayer, and more. On and on you can go. There are different skills that coincide with the values you want. Okay, remember, you cannot be great at everything. What are the skills or competencies I want to be great by the end of my life that would fit with my values? Final one. Who are the people I will prioritize? Other people play a massive role in our lives and always relate to our values. However, just like you cannot value everything, you cannot value everyone in the same way. Think about concentric circles moving out from Jesus being first, and then maybe family, for sure family, not maybe, then family, housemates, or DNA group, or your missional community, different church members, people at work, and so forth. This list will vary depending on the season. It's not forever. Make a list of people or groups you will prioritize from the first to last. It may be shorter than 7, but it shouldn't be much more. So in other words, you're saying, you know what, this season I have to say no to other people. Maybe I can see them here and there, but I'm going to prioritize these people. These are the people God has called me to care for, to prioritize, to disciple, to love, to be there, to pursue deep friendship and enjoyment with. These are going to be my priority. And it's really hard to say no to others, but this is who I'm going to do, who I'm going to really focus on. Okay, and then finally, meet with a trusted friend or mentor to walk through this worksheet. They may be able to identify gaps or create helpful suggestions and encouragements to help you live this out. So hopefully this was helpful. There's a lot here. I know this was pretty long, but I promise you, if you do this with an open heart, prayerfully, God will richly bless this. And I'm confident that this next year can be one of the best years yet, as you give this all up to the Lord with the strength that He supplies. You're not doing this to earn His favor. You're already loved and you're already beloved, but this will help you maximize the life God has given you for His glory.